Welcome to Therapy, Tech, and Takeout, where a therapist and a tech-savvy entrepreneur are just really trying to figure out what the heck is going on in the world. I am Tony Teixeira. I am a therapist, entrepreneur, recovering overthinker, and a bit of an ethics nerd.
And I'm Jackie Toll, an entrepreneur, an unapologetic spreadsheet addict, and a low-rent stand-up comedian. How you doing, Tony? How's your week been? It's good to see you.
Good. My week's been good. How do you like our new opening?
I love it. I think it's accurate. I think it's accurate to what we're trying to do. That
It's
was a really good,
true.
really good call on your part.
I really feel like we're just really trying to figure out what the heck's going on in the world, especially in the world of like therapy and technology and like that intersection. It's like, what the heck is happening? Everything is moving so quickly. I was just having a conversation with my husband about like how we could never have predicted where we are in technology, and with like evolving brains, of course, it's always going to have an impact. I just get more and more excited about, about doing this and about talking to you and really diving in. So I appreciate you. Thanks, Jackie.
Likewise, absolutely. Have you had a good week? Anything exciting happen?
Speaking about trying to figure out the world, I just read Virginia Giuffre's book, Nobody's Girl, and all the stuff that's kind of happening in the news right now with the survivors. Everything just is supposedly unredacted for Congress. And I guess I'm just like really kind of following that. I find myself a little bit, in a hole right now, a little bit of a rabbit hole going down, and just like kind of really feeling emotional for survivors, because it's not only about these women, and there's so many of them, right? Hundreds of them who were abused, but every single survivor that sees this story and is following this story is not feeling believed, is harmed, and just kind of living in this muck. So that's kind of really where I am right now, trying to kind of ride that wave and see where it goes.
Well, I commend you for having the emotional capacity to do that. I have not been able to pick that book up because, like, I just think it'd be too hard to read. So I'm glad to know that the good folks out there are and are helping us all to kind of like process where we are in this, for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
so and in the show notes, if we can put maybe some links to some survivors networks and human trafficking networks, let's do that, because
absolutely,
I think
that's a good point.
We really need to find spaces and places where people can feel comfortable and supported and safe.
100%.
What's happening for you this week?
Well, weird tie-in. But I was gonna say I was lucky enough this weekend to get to go to Mote Marine, which is a science research hub in my hometown. And actually, when I was a teenager, when I was a freshman in high school, and many years before that, Mote Marine sponsored this program where a few kids from all over the world were picked to go off to some remote place with Bob Ballard, it was his program. He found the Titanic. And when I was and do science with real scientists, and they broadcast it back to all of these different like aquariums and research facilities and stuff for kids to watch. And when I was a freshman in high school, I was lucky enough to go. And I was like before I wanted to talk about it, I wanted to make sure that like there was no tie between him and the Epstein files. So I did Google that to make sure that there wasn't a connection, because I wouldn't want to be platforming somebody who had that type of background. But nothing came up. Nothing came up.
Wow. Thankfully. So appreciate that. Did you do what everybody's doing? Like, you can go to the files and like put
I didn't
on the
get
website.
That far. I just Googled it.
And you can put somebody's name in it, and you'll see if their name actually comes up. Yeah.
Well, I hope that that's what Google did, because it told me no. But that's good to know. Maybe we'll put that link in there as well, because I think it's important to do that. We don't want to, platform folks. But thankfully, thankfully. Not that I expected to see it, but he was not in there. And so it was nice to bring that up. But it was really fun to go and see how much the aquarium and the research focus and stuff has changed and how the facility has changed. So I really, really enjoyed that. It was a
What a
fantastic
cool
experience over the weekend.
experience you had as a kid.
It was so cool, Tony. I got to go to Hawaii. I got to like meet with scientists that were designing the Mars rover and practice driving that over the lava fields. We did I got to pick hot lava up on like a stick and put it into cold water. I got to hang out from a helicopter over an active volcano. It was so much fun. like, I still remember it. It's seared into my memory how many years later, like it was just yesterday. So it was an awesome experience. But
Cool.
technology is changing all around us. And I think that brings us to our topic today, which I'm so excited to get your thoughts on once we get into it. But if it's okay with you, let me go ahead and give our listeners sort of the quick TLDR on. So this week we're covering an article called "What is Moltbook? The strange new social media site for AI bots." It's by Josh Taylor in The Guardian. And basically what a Moltbot is an AI agent designed to act on a user's behalf over time. So unlike something like ChatGPT or Claude, where you have to put a prompt in, these are meant to be persistent and monitor information. They summarize content, draft responses. They can make reservations for you at places based on things. So most of the common use cases are things such as like research, summarization, monitoring topics. Like you give them access to your email, you give them access to your messages, your notes app, things like that, and some boundaries of what you're looking for them to do. And they act as your sort of assistant or agent. So while that sounds like a really great thing, they have a pretty big risk because as they're connecting dots across all of these different things you give them access to, they're able to build they can infer patterns about you, your work, your habits, your likes, your relationships, your emotional states, things like that in ways you didn't even ask for or understand. And then there's like no privacy constraints or you don't have control over what happens to that data, right? So think about things that are in your email or your medical information or things like that. So that's what a Moltbot is. And while they're very, very cool, I think people need to be really, really aware of the risk of having all of this data about you in a place, where there aren't, safeguards on control or ownership or things like that, perhaps. But then it brings us to Moltbook, which was a social experiment that's a platform supposedly just for the AI agents to communicate with each other, their own sort of social network. It's a play on Facebook, Moltbook. And it was supposed to be where people were just sort of like observers. But what we've seen is that really a lot of the communication on the platform is still driven by human interaction. I think Elon Musk early on said it was like sort of the beginning stages of the singularity. But I think once researchers kind of dug into it a bit, they were able to see that, this is really still a lot of human driven or human prompted agent to agent interaction. So not quite as sci-fi scary as we thought it was going to be. But that's really what sort of the hype is out there about Moltbots and their social network called Moltbook. But Tony, I was really eager to understand, like, what happens if, like, on a platform, these agents, like, you don't know, right? You don't know if you're talking to an agent or a person.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think that impacts people's thought process or trust in those types of interactions?
So I'm so still like the 5-year-old that's trying to absorb all this. And I just want to even before we get there, I was reading the article. And I clicked on the Moltbook link because humans can watch and see and read what the Moltbots. I assume you have to have a Moltbot for it to join the Moltbook. You can't just have any kind of agent. You have to have
you have to have a
Moltbot.
Yeah, I think so.
And I was nervous.
Yeah,
to
I bet.
put my email address in. I'm like, what am I going to get in return from that? Even if I kind of just go in
and observe.
And I wasn't sure if I could go in and observe or if I had to create a Moltbot to even observe. So I didn't do anything. Gave me I guess it was a HTML code or some kind of code.
Yeah.
That you have to give your ChatGPT or Claude or whatever. I'm assuming this is how it works, right? You give it to that and then it kind of pairs with this. So it goes in.
think it's totally separate. I think like a Moltbot is like its own sort of version of like a chat GPT, or so I think it's its own sort of
Yeah.
standalone platform, so to
Well,
speak.
there was some kind of code though
Right, that
that
you
you
had to
grabbed,
exchange. Yeah.
that you had exchange so that your, I guess, Moltbot connects with it, maybe
Right,
with your
right.
email address. So that worried me. And then what was interesting though was one of the things in the article was saying it's kind of like Reddit for
Yeah. Bots.
AI,
Yeah.
AI bots, and they get to talk to each other, and they're creating
Yep.
things like religions. And but there was like kind of in that perhaps people were kind of prompting their bots to do those things. So for me, there was this question of how much of it is really those bots doing that independently, just based on information they're reading, or are they kind of directly told to, hey, I'm interested in religions and want to create a religion. And then that chatbot goes and starts to create it on on Molt. So I'm like really curious about what this really looks like. I don't really
Yeah.
know how much control. That was kind of my first curiosity about the whole thing. Speaking to your question, ask it again
Yeah,
if
no
you can,
problem.
because
So,
I am still like my brain is still processing all of this.
yeah, so I think that the idea of bots in social media, and be it a human, or like almost in the like it's a stand-in for like it's not a person on the other end of that's a real Tony or Jackie or whatever on the other end. It's somebody standing in, or an AI app standing in for a person on the other end. And so, we've heard about that in social media in lots of ways. I think back for, the last 10 years at least. But I wonder, how does it, when you're on a platform and you don't know if you're interacting with a bot or a person, how does that impact people?
Yeah,
Because
that's a
like,
really good
yeah,
question.
do we have a natural like difference there, or do we not sense a difference? And like, I'm interested in how,
Yeah.
and if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I mean, the closest I feel like I come the information I come to that with is the all the chats agents that we get
Yeah.
when we click on that customer service link. Sometimes it's going actually to a real person, but
Yeah.
most of the
Oh,
time
that's
it's
a really good
not.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're interacting with chatbots all day and know it or don't know it, but we always act like it's another human being anyway, which is really interesting. I think I say please and thank you. I don't know about you,
Yeah, I try to.
but I do too.
Even though they say
Yeah.
you're not supposed to. Well, and here's one of the things that kind of gets me about this, right? Because it's bots, which AI heavy power usage, right? And so we're now saying, hey, bot, don't just do this thing to make my life better, quote unquote, but like go have a social life and expend energy socializing with other bots in a way that's most likely mostly directed by human input anyway. Like, doesn't that kind of feel like a massive waste?
Yes and no. There. Yes, it's using a lot of energy, but there's a curiosity again for me about play.
Yeah.
Children learn by play, but you know what? Adults learn by play too. And it's kind of
100%.
another form of play. So it makes me really curious about, is it possible to harness that kind of play in a really positive way where people can grow and explore and expand even more kind of their thinking or their belief patterns, or ways to express themselves. So there's this kind of, and I think in the article they actually talk about it almost as an art form.
Yeah. Yeah. For
Yeah.
sure.
And so I see it as another type of play. So just like you wouldn't limit children's play, oh, you can't have those toys, or, or you can't sit around and play like that. I don't know. We may want to rethink of it as this form of expression and play and really artistic expression.
Interesting. Interesting. I still lean on the side that I think it's a waste of energy, but I'm more convinced that it might not be. I'm open.
Yeah.
I like the idea of the play side of it and the learning side for sure. And I do think that it's important that obviously we experiment, and that's what this is, right? It's a social experiment to some extent as well. So interesting. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Let me go back to it. Where do you see the biggest ethical red flags as it relates to a tool like this? Like, I see things and I see articles all the time relating to just passive or, agent chat tools you have to go to and request that they do something specific, as opposed to
Yeah.
these, which are constantly on and monitoring with medical information and stuff, not protected by HIPAA, not protected by
Yeah.
privacy. What do you see?
So I think there's two issues. One is Moltbook itself being kind of this artistic expression and this experience of things that are not necessarily true that people could read as true. So that thought definitely comes to mind. In the same way that social media, you're seeing what your feed is showing you, and somebody else is seeing something else. And it also reminds me of like kind of the War of the Worlds, where there were
Yeah.
people who listened to that and thought that was actually happening. That was a news program, and they thought that was real, versus they missed the beginning disclaimer, or even people who heard the disclaimer didn't even really connect the dots. So you have this kind of like, what's reality, and then what
Yeah.
does that mean? And then the other issue, the other piece of the ethical issue, which you're bringing up right now, is these agents having access to so much information. And yeah, that could be scary. That where does that information go? The corporations and the companies who own these chatbots, essentially they're getting that information, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
And who
And then what are
owns
they gonna
them and who owns that, like, is subject to change over time. And the
Yeah,
structure of it too, right? I think even if you look at um ChatGPT's parent company, it was initially like a not-for-profit, but now like they're changing, or there's something around that structure too. So, it feels like
yeah.
none of it's sacred.
And even that is layered. So there's at the individual level how my information is shared and who gets it and what they know specifically about me. But then what happens when you learn about more people and then profile them
Yeah.
and then get information about groups of people? So it's not like my personal information is important, and then like the group,
Yeah.
women in my age group, so there's a lot of ethical concerns about where that information is, how it's held, how it's used.
Absolutely. I think if you just look at, to your point earlier, some of the impact that the difference in our social media feeds plays into our worldview, right? And then if you can extrapolate and understand in real time all of the things I'm seeing from my perspective, and then all of the thoughts I've had where I've captured it in a note or whatever, you have a real ability to control a person, which is wild to think about. But we're seeing cases of it in fringe cases, with children, and, some of the suicides that have happened with chatbot directions and things like that. So I think that it's yeah, it's an interesting and scary frontier. Like, I would love to have this AI bot go and clean up my inbox, right? I think I have like 7,000 unread emails, and like, I used to be an inbox zero person. Like, I hate that I have this many, but it's become this like overwhelming thing that I just, it's like at 7,000, so whatever, I can just forget about it and deal with like what happens in the day. But like, there's no way I would hand over all of, like, I don't want to hit delete because I'm worried it's important information. Like, imagine just
You're
like handing
turning
it
over
over.
decision making. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
turning over decision making over to, even if it was someone else, we might manage an employee who's working for us if we had an assistant. I wonder if there's a little bit more almost trust. Maybe this is another scary piece. I do wonder if people might have more trust in the like virtual assistant of the chatbot versus a person who, oh, human error, let me check on them. And then
Right.
you can hand it over to, kind of a chatbot to do it for you, an assistant,
Yeah.
and then say, it's fine, it's okay, I don't have to check on it. that, remember, we were talking about the hallucination piece and how
Right.
they can make mistakes and ChatGPT can make mistakes.
I was
That
literally
might
just reading an article about AI use in surgery and how they're getting, like, body parts wrong and stuff. Like
no way.
like,
Yeah.
I just started to skim that article of hope probably for another week, but, yeah, like, I mean, it's not by any means a flawless thing, and to give it access to so much of your information.
But I think it's a little scary. Can you see that there may be more people who were likely to err on the side of believing it might be flawless?
Oh, yeah, because it's technology, I think it asserts itself as it's super confident. Like, I'll
Yes.
give you I was looking for something that didn't exist. Like, I needed I was trying to find a plumbing fitting that doesn't exist. And I was using ChatGPT to say, like, okay, how do I solve this problem? I only have this size pipe coming in and I need this amount of outflow, all this stuff. So I was working through it and it was just giving me false information after false information after false information. It would point me to something and be like, here's what you should use. And I'd come back and be like, no, because of this, that, and the other thing that took me 2 seconds to notice, but like it lacks that context and
Yes.
that like ability to look deeper
Yeah.
into the problem, and it took a lot of back and forth to get anything, and I still didn't feel confident in the answer it ultimately gave me, um, or, that I
Hmm.
ultimately came to because there was so much, but, like, imagine if you were just like, "Cool," and you just took it and moved forward. That's totally reasonable because it comes off as, "I know what I'm talking about, I've done all the research, here you go."
Right. Absolutely.
And so you really do have
I
to.
had a really similar experience trying to cancel an account. They
Mm,
always make it difficult with membership accounts to cancel, right? They hide
yeah.
how to do that. So I just typed in, Google Gemini or ChatGPT, one of those, how do I cancel so and so account? And it gave me the steps and I followed it and it didn't work because that prompt that didn't come up.
Yeah.
The go to your account, find cancel subscription, click on that. Yeah, no.
Right.
Yeah, and it says it so confidently.
It
Like, yeah,
really does.
this is the way to go.
Yeah.
I'm taking that in. I'm just like really just taking in that we have a road ahead of us as a society and what place AI is going to fit in our lives and chatbots specifically when people are using them to help them do things. We can see the pros, but we might even miss the cons because they're really subtle and we
Yeah.
might not even know that we're being lied to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the other thing that jumps to my mind too is from an education perspective. Wow, how much harder we need to like hit I want to say like something at the intersection of media literacy and research skills, right? Because that's really those are the things that give you that spidey sense of like, can I
Yeah,
take this at face value or, should I look into it more? And especially when the tool is so adept at being confident and sounding like a source of knowledge as opposed to, I when you Google something, you don't necessarily expect that answer to be accurate, right? Like,
yeah,
I think we kind of got used to that. I think everybody had this fear early on that, like, oh, people, but I think we kind of all quickly realized how flawed it was as like an answer tool. Not that it was without great use, but like it was similar. And so I think with ChatGPT too, or with any of these AI tools, but the scary thing about these ones that are constantly monitoring all of your personal information is that one, they miss context completely. They don't understand if this is
true.
something
Right.
like I'm sharing with you as Tony, my friend, or if I'm somebody sharing something with you, Tony, as a therapist, like it misses any of that context that a person
Mhm.
probably would know. And then it never forgets. Like it's a meant to be
Yeah.
and people forgetfulness of certain things is kind of
Yeah.
is a blessing in a lot of things, right? I don't think we could maintain long-term
Yeah.
relationships if we never forgot.
Right. Right. Well, you just bring up like the other ethical piece, like for therapists to use it. Clients
Oh,
email me
Yeah.
sometimes, of course. I have a messaging system in my electronic health record, but they don't always remember to use it. So they might send me an email. Sometimes it's innocuous and quick. But what if there's information in there that
Yeah.
says a lot more? And they do respond. It might make some assumptions about who I'm talking to, how I'm talking to them, what my voice sounds like. Now, I might sound really different, like you mentioned, talking to a friend, but I might sound different talking between clients.
I bet. Yeah.
I'm going to have a different response. It can't really pick up on those subtleties because it doesn't have context.
Yeah.
It's going to miss the context. It's kind of like when you text somebody back and forth and
Right.
you don't have facial expressions and stuff like that, right? Yeah, like that's missing. And then the
Yeah.
depth of the knowledge of relationships and what that relationship really looks like. So the making assumptions, do you remember,
I love it. I think I know where you're
yeah,
going.
the Odd Couple, right? Assume, right?
Yep.
Make an ass out of you
You
and
and
me. I love
me.
that. Tony Randall did that thing. I think it was in a court, right? For
Yeah,
the
I
work
think
assume.
so.
And yeah, so like when we make assumptions, we really are playing a hit or miss game
Yeah. Absolutely.
and making
Absolutely.
shit up. Making shit up. So where are we landing on this? Any more questions? What else are you
One
thinking about
more.
this?
I think
Okay.
is there a question or like a couple questions you would suggest people ask before delegating responsibility to a machine like this? Like, is there something like a good,
Interviewing, like, should we interview our chatbot?
or like, is there a good like internal pause question of like, is
That's a good.
giving this up like gonna help me? I'm just trying to think of something for users, like, that sort of
Yeah.
internal before they're like, yes, jump into it.
Yeah, I think I think you're right on track in terms of thinking, is this really going to be helpful for me? Is it going to be more helpful? And with everything though, the question is always what's the price and what's the cost benefit?
Yeah.
So if it is going to be helpful, then what's the cost of that? What's the benefit and how much am I losing?
I like
If
it.
you are having it clean out your spam folder, then maybe, or
Right.
your trash folder, but is it worth missing an important, like if I get inquiries in my business through email,
Right.
and I might lose clients if it's sweeping, kind of through my email. So I think that it really, we have to think about whether or not it's going to be helpful.
Mhm.
Uh, If the answer is yes, then what's the cost of
I
that?
love
Because
that.
there's always going to be a cost.
Yep,
We're
and
going to
it's not
lose
just
something.
whatever you're paying for it, for sure.
Right. And if it's losing clients and money, that might be a big cost. Or maybe the benefit is time. You get time back
Yeah.
and that's more than money for you.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's going to look different for everyone, Jackie. I think for some
Absolutely.
people it might be time, for some people it might be money. Some people are high risk
Mhm.
people, and some of us are very low risk people. And we're not gonna do that. But eyes wide open. I have to say that I really love your thought about it. I used to teach college, and I've taught psychology classes, and they're psych of women and developmental psych, and all those intro to psych classes. And I also taught, actually developed a course for teachers, elementary school
Cool.
teachers, many many years back, where research and media literacy were actually kind of part of it.
Yeah.
And research, that's kind of my background, is infused in everything I teach. I think that it's really important for people to understand very basic research so that when you're reading something, you understand what's anecdotal, what's good research, what's just review, and that piece of media literacy to understand, to question what it is you see. But like now, like the other piece might be about literacy on artificial intelligence. Like
Yeah.
I want to like put all three of these things together because information is power and
Absolutely.
knowledge, and what we don't know really can hurt us.
100%.
Really, I really love that. I think those was like so important pieces of education for me, more than can the people in the class understand all these psychological concepts. I didn't necessarily care all the time. I really cared. Can you leave here and feel like you could read research, understand it, and question,
Right.
at like what it is you're looking at in an intelligent way? Like, really, those are really basic skills that are so important. And I think that the next generation is going to need those and artificial intelligence literacy
Yeah.
to really become a generation that does more and not, less. I get that image. I don't know, many years ago, I probably brought it up here too. The movie Wall-E,
Yeah, yeah. With all the
where there's
people.
like just sitting back and they're just in their chairs and everything is happening around them. It's like, that's like my like test idea of like what I don't want society to look like. And I kind of measure that. Like, if
Yeah.
we keep going in this direction, is that where we're going to end up? And I think that those are really important pieces. Jackie, I just, yeah, you're onto something.
I love it. No, this is really helpful, Tony. I think you bring such a wonderful perspective. And I agree. I apologize to all of the librarians that young me probably protested a lot about research, because you did teach me and it sunk in. And I know that those are important, and I get it now. A few years later, but I get it.
It's important stuff. We use it in our everyday life, whether or not we realize it.
Right.
Even when we don't, when we dismiss it, we're
Right.
choosing to
Yeah.
ignore certain facts, but so important.
Well,
This has
awesome.
been
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tony. I always appreciate it. Thank you guys for listening, and don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll catch you next week. Take care. Bye bye.